Hey everybody. How's everybody doing? We having a good time? Or are we having a great time? Okay. How was the first speaker? We got another great one coming up. How was lunch, by the way? Do we like lunch? Okay. And was the exhibit hall cool? Okay. I did want to thank the people that made this possible. It'll only take a minute, but there's a lot of wonderful groups that really helped do this. So the American Institute of Physics really helped sponsor the event, along with the 10 AIP member societies. I'd really like to do a shout out to the medical physicists. So thank you, AAPM. Thank you, AAPT, and the physics teachers. Shout out for AAPT. You can never have enough physics teachers. And thank you to APS, the American Physical Society, for sponsoring this meeting, in particular the dance party on Saturday night. And then can we get a shout out for all the wonderful grad school tables that are downstairs in the expo hall? Awesome. So I did want to welcome to the floor a student to introduce our next guest speaker, our plenary speaker. So Shauna, come on up.
Hello, everybody. I'm Shauna Shepard, a sophomore at Randolph College, and I'm the Associate Zone Counselor for Zone 4. There you go, there you go. And I am honored to be able to introduce our incredible guest speaker, Dr. Renee Horton. Dr. Horton is a woman of many strengths with a story that inspires myself and countless others to chase our dreams and look to the stars with wonder and determination. Her dreams of working for NASA began at just 9 years old, a dream she fought hard to achieve not only as a Black woman, but a person with a disability. When she found out she was hearing impaired and could never reach space as an astronaut like she originally wanted, she dropped out of school. But she overcame the discouragement and made the most of her dreams by going back to school, even while a mother to 3 children. She earned her bachelor's degree in electrical engineering from Louisiana State University and became... She became the first African American to graduate with a material science PhD with a concentration in physics from the University of Alabama. She began working for NASA in 2009 and became a mechanical test engineer in 2012. She has since then become a quality engineer, working with NASA Space Launch Systems in Michoud Assembly Facility in New Orleans, working on projects such as the Artemis missions and supersonic speed planes without the sonic booms. Dr. Horton was elected president of the National Society of Black Physicists in 2016, the second woman to hold the office, and elevated to the highest position of fellow the next year. She is also the author of several amazing children's books, including the Dr. H Explores the Universe series, which encourage children to get involved in science. She is also a member of the best honor society in the universe, Sigma Pi Sigma. Dr. Horton frequently gives talks on dealing with imposter syndrome, her work with NASA, inclusion and diversity in STEM, and finding the intersection of your talent and passion. She has done so much for the physics community simply by being unapologetically herself, something we should all strive to do. We all have much to learn from her about how to make STEM the best it can be for everyone and reach for the stars. It is my honor and privilege to introduce to you Dr. Renee Horton.
All right, okay, good, you can hear me. All right, so let me start by saying, I done pissed off some white folks in the world. On yesterday, I thought I looked amazing. Can you take that tinny sound out of my voice? I sound weird to me, I don't like that. That's it? All right. So I posted this picture, I was stunning in the picture, right? I was leaning back and, I had sucked all in and had a little hourglass going on. And I posted it, and I promised you guys, I'm gonna show you the tweet, right? Because I didn't think it was that, and I'm not viral on Twitter or any of that craziness, so I was shocked that it's been viewed 11,000 times. Put the thing on, baby. There you go. So 11,000 times, and I simply said that physics is historically a white male field, and occasionally black excellence shows up and thrives. And there's a Karen in there that says, physics is for everybody. And she's an engineering person. She's not even a physicist. And so I wrote her back and I said, evidently, you don't know the history of physics. So can we show the world that we have evolved as physicists? I'm not trying to go viral or anything crazy. But if you are on Twitter, let them know that you are okay with physics being integrated. Woo! What you second? Did you tell me to do speaker? Yeah. All right. So, all right, that's the end of that. That's the end of that. I just cannot believe people are upset. I thought I looked good, shit. I don't know. I'm an old woman at 51. Well, not really old, but I'm a lot older than you guys. So let me do this first, because everybody want to be shouting out, folk. I'm from Louisiana. I live on the bayou. I am an LSU alum. So I'm going to shout out Zone 10, which is Louisiana, Arkansas, Mississippi, and part of Tennessee. So if you are in those states, let me hear it. But in 2018, I went over to Texas, y'all, and they do it real big in Texas. And I was inducted into Sigma Pi Sigma. And so Texas Lutheran will always be my home as far as physics is concerned. So let me get a little love from you guys, too. There we go. We practiced that. Y'all did amazing. Oh, there we go. Good evening, good afternoon. I am so excited to be here. And believe it or not, I was a little bit nervous before I got up here. And somebody said, why in the world are you being nervous? And I was thinking yesterday and this morning, we had some serious heavy hitters. See, I looked up to Jim Gates and John Mathers, and I remember meeting them the first time and was kind of tongue-tied a little bit meeting them. And even when I met Joycelyn for the first time, I was thinking, oh my God, what did I do to deserve that following that crew? And I was putting my slides together today. I went back into my room and changed the slides. I was like, it's gotta be different. It's gotta be powerful. I need fireworks, and Brad did not allow me to have fireworks. I also asked for a dunking booth, and I didn't get that either. But anyway, Deja? Okay, all right. So I want to talk to you guys today about defying my disability and being able to survive and then learn how to thrive. So my dream was to be an astronaut. How many of you have dreamed on being an astronaut? Now, for all the hands that are up in the air, unless you're over 36, you good. You can still pursue that dream. So now we have something in common, because I really wanted to be an astronaut. These are my parents. That's their wedding day. I just found out recently my brother was in the oven. I just did the math. So in this picture, it's my mom and dad, both of my grandmothers, and my brother. And the other picture is me on their laps. And I jokingly talk about, people say, well, how long did you know you wanted to be in science? And I said, I'm almost certain the day my father's sperm met my mother's egg and they united, it said, I'm so gonna be a scientist. So that's how long I've known. So I got this telescope at 9. I only stuck this picture in here so that, and Jim's not here to show him I had a fro too. But I got this telescope at 9 and it changed my life. See, that telescope showed me that there was so much more in the world besides me. And I was excited, and I wanted to know what that was. I had grown up in a 2-parent home, and around 13 or 14, my parents got a divorce. And that changed my whole life. Because see, at that point after the divorce, we were poor. And my mother could barely afford keeping our lights and water on all the time. And so there would be times she would call home and she'd say, go run the water in the tub because they're going to cut the water off today, and you're going to still need to be able to get up and go to school, and you're going to wash up and do all those things. Well, the guy would come to our house probably every other month, and so he'd knock on the door and say, did you do what your mama told you to do? And I'd go, no, let me go do this. Come back and cut the water off. So the first time I actually told this story, it was an audience, and it was a whole white audience with 2 black people in it. The black people were nodding their head like, and the white man went. And I could see the color, like he was so embarrassed for me. And I stopped and I said, has that never happened? He said, no. I said, you do understand that in the role that you were in, you're going to meet people that come from everywhere, and all of our stories are different. I was like, and just like you had the awe of shock, I want to teach you a little compassion about that afterwards. Because see, I'm standing here on the stage talking to you, sir, and I didn't die. So if anybody's struggling right now, I promise you, you won't die. So I started college at 16. I was a true nerd. I hated high school because people was always bullying me. I'm 5'2". I have actually been put in a garbage can before. Go figure. I was actually going behind my books because they took my books in there and then they boosted me in to get them, right? But I started college at 16 and I went through the Air Force ROTC because at that time I had this ROTC? Woo! All right. So at that time I wanted to be a pilot and then I was going to go on and become an astronaut. That was my big plan. I had laid it out. Well, I went to get my physical, and at that time, I found out, along with everybody else, I had a hearing disability. I was shocked, because I didn't realize that, and I didn't know. Well, I didn't qualify for the ROTC at that point, and they marked a big old red X. And I had never really seen a big old red X marked on anything that I had really done, because I was smart. And I had, could do things without putting a whole lot of effort in. But this was something that was a little bit out of my control. Well, at the time, I had this boyfriend. Whew, he was chocolate, had muscles. He played football, so he had muscles popping in places muscles wasn't popping when you're 18, right? I was like, ooh, this boy fine. But I went back home to tell him that I couldn't be in the Air Force. Our plans were kind of shook up a little bit, and we got pregnant. So I was pregnant at 18. It's a boy. Literally, I found out at 5 months that I was pregnant and I was going to have a baby boy. I didn't know before. Well, I dropped out and became a wife and a mother and popped out that other little boy right there. This is probably the only picture we have of my 30-year-old as a baby. To me, he looked like a little baby monkey when he was born. And so therefore, because he was an ugly kid, we didn't take a lot of family pictures. But I became a wife and mother, and that lasted about a good 6 or 7 years. Now, ladies and gentlemen, I think the question came from that side of the room the other day, and it was like, should I have a family? Yes, you should, if that is so what you choose. And yes, it is important to choose your mate and to make sure that you guys are aligned and at least are in the same gravitational force and that you're at least standing in the same universe. Him and I were not. It was that Venus and Mars deal. We really were different, and we didn't work out. We separated, and then we were separated for a while. In Louisiana, people just don't get divorced sometimes. So we were separated like 8 years. So technically on paper, I was married 15 years. I hold that close to my heart. That's a badge of honor for me. I gave birth to my daughter. And in giving birth to my daughter, they brought her to me. She was looking at me, and I was looking at her. And she said, well, my mother always says I was loaded on the drugs, but I know to herd the baby, right? So she looked at me and she says, what are they gonna do? And I said, well, I just had a baby. I was planning on resting. And she said, no, that doesn't work for me. Now, mind you, my daughter's 24 and she is a fire starter. But the catch is, when my daughter was born, she changed my life. She made me realize that I needed to get up off my butt and go make the world different. And in doing that, I needed to take control of my hearing disability and move forward. So one of the best decisions I made and one of the craziest was I went back to college with 3 kids in tow. We moved into a teeny tiny apartment on LSU's campus. So, are there students here from LSU? I saw them recruiting, so next year, or in 3 years, that'll be different, because some of you guys will go there and then we'll come back, okay? Now, let me stop right there. I'm supposed to give a shout out to the recruiting booth downstairs in the exhibit hall. LSU is here, so if any of you are interested in becoming a tiger, head on down there and talk to them and tell them Dr. Renee sent you. The catch is I moved into this family dorm, and there were other parents with kids. And so all of a sudden, I wasn't different. There were other people doing exactly what I was doing. Not in physics or engineering at the time, but they were doing what I was doing. So how I survived undergrad, I took control of my disability. And many of you will say, well, how did you do that? Like the physicists we are, I did a lot of research. I wanted to know what it was, how it was, and how I was processing my hearing. And so therefore, how could I be successful? I took control of it. I had a strict schedule for me and the kids. I'm talking about strict. My mom called and said, we're getting this award on Tuesday. I said, I'm sorry, it was a Monday. I said, you should have called on Sunday. Because see, on Sunday, if it had not made the schedule, we didn't go. And I didn't care what it was. We just didn't go. That's how strict our schedule was. And a lot of you want to still be living this other life, like, I'm just running around doing me. No. If you really want to be in physics, because physics is hard, you got to create a schedule that is realistic for you and not your friends or your family. What's really realistic for you. So I created a blank space from each semester. I'm from Louisiana, y'all. I believe in superstition. So every semester I bought the same notebooks, the same mechanical pencils, the same pens, and I started my semester that way. And if I didn't use them, I did not keep them for the next semester. I'm almost certain that's some bad juju stuff. I gave them away or donated them to other families or other people in the building because I was on scholarship, and that scholarship paid for everything for me. So I understood what privileges I had that other people didn't actually have. So I created a network to help with the kids. We created this type of family environment to where there were other single parents at the time in the building, and each one of them had a day, and they would have the kids, and that allowed that other mother to be able to do her work and to be able to focus. And then on the day you had the kids, there was no work being done, right? You had the kids. They could either bring snacks, and we worked it out. Each semester it was a little bit different. I also created a network with my peers. Because see, I said I was hearing disabled when I went back to school, and so I had a note taker. And that note taker, him and I turned out to both be electrical engineering majors with a minor in math. Go figure, how do you find people like this, right? You open up your mouth and you start talking to people. Well, he ended up being my note taker, and because we were in the same classes, after the first semester, our schedules were identical almost except for our electives. He became my network, and he's like my little brother today. He's still a part of my family. And then I identified possible sponsors and mentors. And how I did this at every conference I went to, at every engagement that I had, anytime I talked to anybody else, I was always trying to identify whether or not they would be a good sponsor for me or a good mentor. So there is a difference between a sponsor and a mentor. Who knows it? There's one back there, good. A sponsor is someone who will get you in the door when you cannot go in that door. They will vouch for you. Your mentor is the one who will make sure that when someone else walks you through that door or they walk you through a door, that you are ready for that space. Got it? So I went back to school, and 2 years later, I went fall, spring, summer 1, summer 2, and intercession for 2 years straight to be able to finish school when I went back. I went back after 10 years. So it was a 10-year gap between being there and then going back, right around the time your credits expire. So if there's anybody that you know that's thinking about going to school, you may want to poke them because the credits will expire and you have to start over. I did not have to do that, and I was grateful for that. So I ended up with an electrical engineering degree with a minor in math, and then a PhD in material science with a concentration in physics as the first African American to finish that particular program at the University of Alabama. Now, I'm an SEC girl. We believe in our football. We are die-hard football folks, even when your team is win or lose. And as you can see, I could choose either or. I could choose an always winning team, or I could choose my team. My degrees are divided, but my house is not. I bleed purple and gold to the death of me. And at the way they're playing, it might be this year. In 2020, I was inducted into the LSU Distinguished Alumni, let's see how it goes. The Alumni Hall of, I don't know, it's on that paper, the Distinguished Hall of, anyway, somebody thinks I'm a distinguished alumni, and I got inducted into the organization, and we had a purple carpet, and they played a This Is Life video. What that did for me was, it made me realize that there were people watching the things that I was doing in the world, and that those things were important. I had been voted 2019 Louisianian of the Year, and that's for people doing great things in Louisiana. And then this happened the following year. And for me, it meant that what I wanted to do was to get back and make an impact in my state and in other places was truly happening. And that not that I could go and rest, is that I still had more work to do. So after college, and I had this fancy ass title, y'all doctor, right? People was around there, Dr. Horton, Dr. Horton. I was unemployed, homeless, had to move back in with my mama and my bonus dad. And then I worked on my 90-day transformation. Because see, at that point in my life, I had to stop and look at me to try to figure out, how did I actually get here? Like, what was I not doing right? I reframed my picture. See, that was that moment in my life where I stopped and I became accountable for my actions and less about what other people weren't doing for me. So my first job, I went to Samson Rope Technology. Yeah, it was a great job, so I thought, right? I was asking all these questions, though, and I realized because they weren't a very diverse organization in management. I was the only black. And the workers were all black, but all other management and leadership was not. And I asked way too many questions, and guess what? Them folk fired me. Well, actually, my paperwork says that I was let go during my probationary period because I wasn't a good fit for the company. I tell you that because a lot of times we try to stick these round pegs in these square holes, or the other way around, whichever one it is, and it doesn't work, and it doesn't fit. But yet and still, we don't either know our worth enough, or we're so worried that we're not worthy enough for where we want to be, that we just assume that where we stopped at that pit stop is okay. And it wasn't. I would have stayed at the job until I got my next call, but they fired me anyway. And I called my sister and I said, I don't know if I should tell you this, but I'm really happy. Because see, my family had been helping me pay my bills and take care of me for like 3 or 4 months after graduation. And they were like, you got fired, who gonna pay your bills? I was like, well, I tried to be responsible, and I took the money that I had gotten from the move and all of this stuff, and I had put it in the bank, and I was like, I got just enough money, 90 days, to be able to go find another job. So I didn't want a job during Mardi Gras, though, because I wanted to be able to do Mardi Gras. So I said, as soon as Mardi Gras is over with, right, I'm going to go look for a job. Well, lo and behold, a week after Mardi Gras. See, I put it in the universe, and the universe gave me what I wanted. A week after Mardi Gras, I got a call from NASA, and the lady said, excuse me, I need your paperwork. And I said, I'm sorry, what you need my paperwork for? Because I'm thinking she being real nosy. Like, what she need my paperwork for, and why she need to know if I graduated? She didn't even start this conversation properly by telling me what she wanted. I was like, how can I help you, and what you need this paperwork for? She was like, when are you gonna send it? I was like, well, I'm gonna send it tomorrow. She said, okay. She hung up. Well, did I send the paperwork tomorrow? No. Because, I was still in my growth moment, and I was feeling myself, and I was like, oh, I don't know who she thought she was calling me like that there and acting like that. I don't know what her problem is. Well, 2 weeks later, this lady called back, and she says, what the hell is wrong with you? I asked you for that paperwork to tell me that you graduated. All I need is your transcript. She's like yelling. And I said, okay, what do you need it for? She said, oh, did they not call you from HR? We have a job for you. And I went, for me? Ooh, a job for me? And she was like, yes. See, right then, for me, my life had gone full circle for the first time. Because growing up, I wanted to work for NASA and be an astronaut. That didn't happen. But now NASA was calling me. I wasn't chasing NASA. NASA was calling me. Now, this had come after me doing some internships there, and there were some people there, some sponsors, who thought I should be working for NASA. And my sponsor was a tall white guy who just retired, and he cried more than I did when he wrote my letter of recommendation. Because, see, he wrote it and gave it to me, and then I read it, and I was like, do you feel this way about me? And I was blown away that he could feel that way about the work that I had done, and then how he had very nicely stated, and Dr. Horton should be a member of NASA. Well, that letter had gone to HR during that time, and I did 2 years as a student there through the internship program. And so when they called me, it was because a position had opened up that it was perfect for me. What I found out is 22% of PhDs work in the field that they were trained in. 22%. That means for all of you sitting here deciding you can go get a PhD, be prepared, you could be doing something else. Just letting you know. But I have the privilege of being one of the 22. Because my dissertation was self-reacting friction stir weld on dissimilar alumina. It's a mouthful sometimes, it makes me excited, it just wears me out, right? And with that, it is what is being flown on Artemis, the current rocket that's sitting down at the pad, waiting to be able to fly. So April 2012, I pack up from Louisiana. It's my kid's third middle school, and we head to Alabama. I become a mechanical test for the Boeing project, and that was Artemis. And then I became a systems engineer. I went on to do a systems engineering leadership detail, where I got to look at the intersection between the engine section and core stage. And so for us, the engine section and core stage is the newest piece to our rocket. That's the part that was the new and novel for us, right? And so I got to look at that and make sure that that was gonna be a sporty kind of thing. In 2014, I cried like a baby because they had kept sending me home, and I was having such a good time, but I would feel my soul come alive when I would step back in Louisiana. And I wanted home. I felt home was calling me, and I wanted to be there. So I begged like a baby, took a took a pay cut, went back home. Now I tell you, I took a pay cut to go back home because that's where my happiness was. See, every time I'd go to work, there would be all kind of foolishness that would always be happening. Like, we think NASA is amazing. NASA does amazing work, but not all the things that go on inside of NASA are great. And as a black woman, sometimes it gets hard. There are people who don't, like that tweet, I ain't never, 11,000 views because people pissed off that I have black excellence. Don't be fooling with me. But those things would happen. I would watch other people get promoted that I know I was better than. Or I wouldn't be allowed to take some course, some leadership training, right? Because I wasn't part of the network that was assigning those people to that training. Do I love NASA? Oh, I do. I love everything that I do there. Because when you are in a place that you belong, and it is the place that your talent is being called to, no one can truly stop your growth and your excellence and your superiority to what you have to give to that organization. So I cried like a baby. This guy, I was gonna be in his network now, right? I love DJ, love him, love him, love him. And he said, you wanna go home? And I said, yes, I do. And he said, it's not behind some boy, is it? I said, it is, but I still wanna go home, right? He said, if you and that boy break up today, do you still wanna go home? I do, I wanna go home. So he said, well, we'll make it work. And that day was my honorary card into the Good Old Boy Network, because all those guys went to work and made it happen for me. And I promised that I would give them everything that they needed from me. And he says, doesn't matter. He says, we know you're qualified. He says, and now you're my unicorn. I said, you're what? He said, you're my unicorn. He said, you're the only bald, black woman I know with a PhD and a disability. We checking all the boxes with you, baby. So I didn't know if I should be offended or not, right? Because I was imagining, you know, the horn. Like, that's all I kept imagining was the horn and the ears. And I was thinking, I'm just not so sure if I want to be a unicorn. Well, at that time, actually, I still had an afro. And so we went down and started going back and forth, and my team lead was insecure about who he was. At the time, he had a BS, but he was a lead. And he felt like they had sent this PhD down here to take his job. And for me, I only wanted to be at home for Mardi Gras working. That was it. At that time, I had no desire to be a lead. I didn't want to be managing other people's emotions. I didn't want any of that. And so he had been giving me a hard time because he had been kind of keeping me out of the meetings. How many of you have been kept out of the meeting? The stuff done happened and you'd have been kept out of the meeting? So I went to his office and I said, yo, what's the deal? Can we talk about this? Because I want to be successful, you want to be successful, but I need to understand what's your issue. And he looked me in my eyes and he says, you scared the shit out of me. He says, I think you want my job, or I think they're going to give you my job. And I looked at him and I said, I'm a team player. As long as you give me what I need to be able to stand on what they're asking me to do, I will forever support you and make sure you are good too. And after that, we were friends. After that, he would be yelling in the hallway, they left your name off the thing, you gotta come to the meeting. I'm like, I'm on my way. And then I walk in and be like, who was in charge of this meeting invite? And he would be like, he was. He was. He was quick to throw everybody under the bus. And that's because he knew I was on his side and that no matter what, I would be able to do the things that he needed me to do. And I would make sure he would be a great leader. That was my only goal. Well, they put me in charge of the weld tool, which turns out to be the largest weld tool in the world, right? And I get there, and I'm all excited because, you know, I'm a birthday girl. Somebody sent me balloons. I got to figure that one out, too. But I'm a birthday girl, and they were supposed to do this weld on the day before my birthday. And I was like, look at the heavens that opened up and gave me the best birthday gift ever. Not. 4 days before that, we found out it didn't work. We were 2 years behind, and we found out it did not work. Go figure. And we were going to take it apart, and we were going to be another 18 months behind. And the guys were from Sweden. They went and got on a plane and left. Like, it don't work. And they left. Like, he went on FMLA and quit the company. I was like, whoa, like, what is happening? And it was a woman in charge, and all I was thinking about was there were 2 women in charge, and we just got railroaded, and we just got thrown under the bus because this guy just got on a plane and left, and we got to now explain this. And that woman, who's a very dear friend of mine, she ended up taking the fall for all of that. Because that's what happens when you're in management. How many of you want to go and be in management? Want to go to industry? 1, 2. You're going to need some strong shoulders. That's all I'm telling you. So they tell us it doesn't work. We have to tell all of this. I'm now reporting to Congress. And I'm like, what the world? Like, how did this happen? And I was telling the team lead, right, but you're the team lead. I could give you the information. He was like, that is not my pony. Dog and pony show. That's not mine. You do it. He says, but I got your back. And so I had a whole team of guys that were willing to give me what I needed whenever I needed it to make sure that I was able to report up and out. 18 months later, we brought it back online, and it works. I'm going to show you some pictures. They sent me, and I became the POC for the scanning electron microscope, and they sent me to class, and I got to do some really cool stuff that had nothing to do with what I was doing, but I got to look at some amazing images. So for all of those who are running scanning electrons, or if you're not running one yet, you want to at some point in your life, those images are amazing. Went on and became a quality engineer, which is in the bio she read, and what's not in the bio is that I no longer hold that job. In 2021, I went over to the low boom flight demonstrator project, and that was to get rid of the supersonic sound when you go, the boom when you go supersonic. And I worked on that project, and they're about to take their first flight in about 2 months. And make your mind up, okay. So in 2022, one of my dreams, or one of the places I wanted to be, was a chief engineer. And I was offered a position out at Armstrong for the electrified powertrain flight demonstrator project, and I am the airworthiness deputy as a chief engineer. And so for me, that was my goal, not a goal someone else set for me, not any of that. That's where, and people were like, you would be really good at this. But that's not what I want. I love technical. I love new information. And so ending up in the research department for airplanes is something amazing. And I never really thought about it until one of the things I do to relax is I go check into a hotel and I watch airplanes fly. And if we can't see them, we judge until we can see them what engines just fired up. Because, you know, for the big boys, Delta does not sound like Southwest, I'm telling y'all. So we judge those things, and then boom, there's the plane, and we go who's right and wrong. There's 2 other people who do this with me because, you know, my network is a little weird, right? But in doing that, one day, I realized, again, my life had gone full circle. See, I had wanted to be a pilot and fly an airplane, and again, the universe had delivered to me something I had dreamed of. I'm now working on airplanes, and I had the privilege of signing the nose of the X-59, which is the low boom plane, and it'll probably go to the Smithsonian. No. So once again, my life had gone full circle. I don't know if I need any more circles, but how many circles are in that SPS gig right there? All right. So my very first project at NASA was testing the Welds that you see on this MSA, which is a multi-vehicle something service adapter. The picture in the top. It's not even here anymore, don't worry about it. So we painted it and did all of this stuff, and that particular day, because it was a test article, they allowed us to put our names on that article. And I did. I put my name, my mama name, my daddy name, my sister name, them kids I got, I put their name too. And this guy I was dating, I put his name too. Ooh, that's the big on the story. Listen to me, folks in this room. Don't be writing other people that you're not married to on this here stuff, okay? This thing went into space and disintegrated. And my relationship disintegrated soon after that. Go figure. Michoud Assembly Facility is in New Orleans, Louisiana, and you cannot go to space without going through Michoud. You'll notice that team, right? I love this team. One of these things is not like the others. This was my guys, though. I love them. And when I shaved my head in 2014, I bonded with each one of them differently. I found out that somebody's wife had had cancer 4 times. I found out that one of them had lost their son to cancer another time. But before that, I had not been able to really bond with this team. I think they saw me and realized, and thought maybe we didn't have anything in common. So when they took this picture and we had to post it, I hurry up and grabbed it and I retweeted it, and I was like, look y'all, look at all my white guys. Right? And then they came back and they realized, like, oh, wow. Like, I think nobody had really paid attention until we saw the picture. The guy on the end went to battle for me. Battle for me. He's the reason I ended up getting a citation at NASA. The guy who originally was my lead, who was a little nervous, is the guy next to me. Let me double check. In green. And then my last lead is the one all the way to the end in the light blue and then the dark blue. Both of those guys ended up being, people that I led under, that I supported, and that they supported me in the roles that I was in. You cannot do a dedication in New Orleans without a good old brass band. So when we dedicated Heroes Way, we had a brass band. If I was in charge of SPS, we'd have a brass band. And who recognizes the guy on the end? Who knows who that is? Gerard, whatever, from Geostorm. There we go. But Geostorm was actually filmed at NASA, and we had part of our article during the time that the tool was broken. We had part of our liquid hydrogen tank sitting there, and we had told them they couldn't touch it. And this guy kept saying repeatedly, I just want to touch it or lick it and see what she does. So we staged the picture. Artemis is Apollo's twin sister. It's going to take a woman to get us back to the moon. All right, so when I say you cannot go to space without going to New Orleans, you cannot. The core stage, which is the center part of this, was done in New Orleans. All the pieces were fabricated in different places. It was brought to New Orleans, and it was all integrated in New Orleans. The engine section was also integrated in New Orleans. The engines came from Stennis. They put them on a truck, drove them over, and then we integrated them into the core stage. The propulsion system was made, the interim ICPS was made somewhere else. The Orion adapter was made in New Orleans. Orion was welded in New Orleans, sent to Florida, and then they outfitted it with the avionics and everything else there. So when I say you cannot go anywhere without going to New Orleans, I'm serious. We took it over, This is the Vertical Assembly Center. It stands 170 feet tall with a 26-foot circumference. It is the largest well tool in the world. The team that you see during Breast Cancer Awareness Month, my aunt had been diagnosed with breast cancer a second time, and I allowed her to cut my hair off that particular year in early October. Well, I asked my team if they would be willing to celebrate Breast Cancer Month with me, and they all said yes, emphatically. So I purchased these high visibility pink shirts and put all of these guys in there. They let me paint their hair pink, mustaches, and eyebrows. And we all got together for our team picture inside of the VAC. This was an international team. These guys were from Sweden. And so you had the Swedish team, you had Boeing, and then NASA all in this photo, all of us being pulled together to be able to do a greater good for mankind. These are the tools that we work on, and this is the welding that is actually on the rocket. That was my dissertation. That's my baby. And so you'll hear people say at the thing, Renee's baby, Renee's baby, Renee's baby. Because the hydrogen tanks that's up there, I watched that whole entire piece get put together. I knew every flaw that was on it, every defect, everything associated with it. That picture won third place in the NASA competition. The image on the bottom is when we actually fired up and had it successfully run for 8 minutes. See, the first time we fired, it did not run for 8 minutes, and it was national television. And I was at home at that time on console, and 2 of my friends were there, and my dad was there, and they all turned to me and said, "Was it supposed to do that?" And I went, "No, it's not. It's not." You know, and then the phones are ringing, and then they're calling, and people are reviewing video footage, and it was like, oh my God, why did we have to do this in front of everybody? But we did. Well, the next time it got ready to go, I was invited to be VIP, so not on the console, but actually there. And I watched it, and it ran the 8 minutes like it was supposed to. And I cried. I'm talking about I emptied my soul that day. Because see, at that point, it was like 8 or 9 years of my life had just gone into that, and we were one step closer to actually launching. And that's her in all her glory on the stand down in Florida. Now, they did tuck her away for the hurricane, but she's getting ready to go back out, and we're going to attempt to launch again on November 27th, and we have a window through December 2nd. She'll go before the end of the year. Where's the young lady who asked me about the low boom plane? Raise your hand if you're in here. Yes? All right, that's your plane. So you see how it's got this really long extended nose? We actually have pilots who fly blind when they land and take off in this thing because they can't see anything. But this is the LBFD or X59 for us, and then this is the one that we are working on to reduce the sonic boom with. My name sits right under that nose cone before we put it together. It is due to fly toward the end of the year is when their date is to actually fly. And then now the electrified powertrain flight demonstrator, EPFD. We have 2 contractors. We work with GE and MagniX. MagniX is this little bitty company that is currently in Washington State, but they came from Australia and everywhere else to be able to do this. They are a company of about 10 engineers. So if any of you want to take your physics knowledge over there, go give them something. But we have these 2 planes, so we're going to outfit a 340B, and then we're going to do a Dash 7. I'm really excited because they allow me every now and then to get in the simulators. I've only crashed the plane 30 times, but I'm getting better. Like, no, we're not blowing up anymore, you know. Now it's just like crashing, kind of crash landing, but I'm getting a lot better, guys. This is my new team. And of course, I showed up at it, and I was the only African American that day on the executive team. But this time, it feels like home. And so for all of us, if you turn out to be the only, there's still going to be a place that's going to feel like home. Whether you're the only woman, the only man, the only black, the only Hispanic, the only white, the only Asian. There's going to be a place that you land, and it's going to feel like home. Now, it does help that I've got two very strong Latino ex-women running the project, and they don't play. But it's comfortable. And of course, you know, I'm always get my individual picture. I was like, I waited too. I was like, can you take me by myself? Because they don't all look good. Like, get me by myself. And they was like, yes, Renee, yes. So I got my pictures. But that's our baby plane right there. And that's the 340B that we're doing out of, and it is currently in Manassas, Virginia. So I've been spending a lot of time in Manassas, Virginia. If you're ever in Manassas, go-kart riding. They have an Autobahn. I run a nonprofit organization called Unapologetically Being Incorporated, and that's where a group of my friends got together and we mentor folks like you. We mentor anyone who wants or needs to be mentored. We answer all questions. If you can get on the calendar, we will answer your question. I used to have these mentees, but they all grown and gone. They've all flown the nest. They've either gone, and we've had them all the way. We get you through undergrad, we keep you through grad school, and then through your first job. And then I've had them call back after being on their first jobs and say, how can I maneuver this, or what do I need to do? I just need to be able to talk. I have served as past president as the second woman to hold the office. There was 33 years in between the two women who held the office. SPS and NSBP have a joint thing going on, where if you have membership in SPS, you have membership in NSBP, and you can go to that conference. Each one of the conferences are extremely different. Both of them are extremely nurturing and will give you what you need. For those who don't look like me, going into a space like that helps you learn how to be a sponsor. It also helps you get rid of your inherent biases that you have about other people, because that's a safe zone for you to be able to grow and do that with. For those who do look like me, that space is a space that nurtures you and gives you people who look just like you, and that when you go to tell the story, you ain't got to go and ahhing about it, because we already know the story because it was our story. So I say to you, if you have not gone to an NSB conference, being that this one happens every 3 years, you may want to consider going to one, if for no other reason, is to build your network. I served on the International Union of Pure and Applied Physics. I did the Women's Working Group as the only grad student to be on it as an associate member, and then once I graduated, I went as a full member. See, what I've learned along the way was, for those things that I wanted, I found a way to get them. I didn't always accept no as an answer. So I wanted to go to Brazil. I couldn't afford to go to Brazil. I Googled to find out what conferences were in Brazil. It turns out IUPAP had a conference. So I wrote them and I said, how do I get on this team? And they said, well, you have a team from the US. So I Googled that team. It was all white women. I said, well, they don't have no blacks on there. Can I get my own team? And they were like, yes. So I went to the National Society of Black Physicists and I said, they ain't got no black people on that other team. Can we take a team? They said, yes, 5 people, pick your team. I said, what? So it was my first year as a grad student. I was like, I don't even know how to pick no team. They said, get these resumes. And I was like, ooh, I like her picture. I want her to go. She know how to dress. That's not the way you pick a team. They wanted it to be a diverse team, older, younger, mid-career. I was like, I don't know nothing about none of this. I just wanted to go to Brazil. Well, then this scary white lady calls me, and she says, you're not doing a separate team. Beverly Hartline turned out to be one of my biggest mentors. I wouldn't be where I am without her. She said, you can't have a separate team, and we now need to have a meeting. I said, really? Where are we going to have a meeting? In D.C. I was thinking, dang, we'll go to D.C. on Mother's Day. Mother's Day, to talk about a team for women going to Brazil. What's the irony in that? We got together, we merged the team, and because I didn't have a PhD, I was not allowed to be a team leader, even though it was my team. But I got to go to Brazil. And I had a cute bathing suit. Well, I became a full member after graduation, and that's where I met Jocelyn in South Africa during that time. And then I went on, and just recently they thought I did such a good job at the other gig, they put me back on IUPAP on C13 for developing physics. So I get to go to Italy when COVID lets up. With IUPAP, I went to Canada, Mexico, Brazil, South Africa, and Korea in the UK. I tell you this because a lot of times we think that we're going to become physicists and we're going to be one of these guys or gals with a pocket protector with some pens and pencils in it, and we're not going to have no real full life. And that's not true. If it had not been for me switching from engineering into physics, I may not have had the life that I actually have. Because see, with that, I became a purple cow, right? People knew who I was. People knew what work and what I stood for and my integrity. They knew my work ethic. And they said, come be on our team, come do this, or come do that. And it allowed me to go into other places and to be able to walk into other opportunities that I'm not sure I would have had otherwise. I am a hearing loss advocate because there are plenty of us who won't speak up for ourselves. And I figured if nothing else, as long as I can hear me, I'm going to fight for others. And if all of you would write a letter to Resound, that's the people my hearing aid are with, and tell them I want my red hearing aids back, I would really appreciate it. You know, if I just get a little bit of y'all, like 400 of y'all to write them a letter, I might get them back. I have a creative space because I believe that all of my brain should be working, left and right. My work gives me one side, but my creative outlet gives me another. Each one of you will walk home with a Dr. H sticker if you so choose today. These are the 3 books that I have that a publisher can get them off of Amazon or from our workspace. The character all the way on the end is O'Shawn. She's coming out and she is going to be in a chapter book. So just a little bit more advanced than the other book. I recently was elected to be a Google Black
I've had a
Women
PhD
Ambassador.
now for 10 years. Nobody hands anybody a PhD, which says that I am intellectually capable. And I still question myself.
That's the trailer. I never in my life thought there would be a trailer about me. So I do have a bit of an attitude some days. So this guy comes in my Twitter, DM, and was like, you should apply for this project because you're great. And I said, if you know I'm great, what am I applying for? So I didn't fill out the paperwork right away. So I say I got a problem, I know. A month later, he calls back and says, we think you are great, and we want you to apply for this. You just need to do the paperwork, please. I said, okay, I'm gonna do the paperwork. And I went on there, and that thing was 3 pages long, and I was like, he tripping. I ain't finna do no 3 pages. All right, so I do the thing, and then I don't hear nothing for a month. And I'm like, nah, he done wasted my time, right? Well, about a month and a half later, I get this email. It's like, we need to have a call. I said, we need to have a call. They were like, yes, we need to ask you some questions about your application. I was like, oh, Lord, here we go. So she calls and she says, do you have any computer science knowledge? I said, nope, sure don't. I said, my daddy is a computer scientist. My aunt is a computer scientist. I was like, but I failed computer programming twice. And if it wasn't for, remember that guy I told you was my note taker? He was my partner. I would write the stuff. He would go debug it. It worked. We passed, right? So she said, okay, that's enough, thank you. I said, that's it? She said, that's it. Well, another month goes by. I don't hear nothing. I'm like, nah, I ain't no wasting my time 2 times. So I send them an email like, hey, what's going on? Like, can you tell me what's gonna happen? They were like, yes, you made the short list. I was like, made the short list for what? Like, I just realized, like, I applied and didn't know what I was applying for, one, and that no time had they said what it was. So I had made the short list. I was all excited. I was telling people I made the short list. They was like, for what? I don't know. But being that you ain't never made a short list, and I made the short list, let me have my moment. So they call and they do the interview, and this really earthy and spiritual lady, and we're talking, and I feel transcended, y'all. Like, I am floating above the earth, and I was like, oh my God, my soul has reached through the Zoom and touched her, and the interview was amazing. And I wanted to be her friend, right? So, can we be friends? She was like, yes, after this is over with. And I was like, in that really, sounding voice, I was like, what is this? She says, I can't tell you. So finally I get the call on a Sunday, and it's the head of the casting company who calls you. And she said, hello, Dr. Horton? I said, yes, who is this? Calling me on a Sunday. She said, this is Diana. I wanted to let you know you've been chosen. Chosen for what? She says, Google. I said, what they gonna do? They gonna verify me? Like I'm about to get a blue check? She was like, no, they're gonna do a documentary. I said, on who? Like for me? Like you gonna get somebody to play me, or what are we doing? Like, do I need to lose weight? What's gonna happen? So she said, I can't put it in the email, but this is what it is, and they're gonna pay you. I was like, what? I was like, well, who get to play me? You get to play you. I was like, what? So we go through this whole process, and it was crazy, guys, because they came in to film, and we had a hurricane, and the whole time we're filming, I'm like, yo, we gotta hurry up, the hurricane coming. Like, you gotta leave, because if you don't, you're gonna be stuck. And he from the north, he don't know nothing about no hurricane, and he gonna be starving and stuff. He gotta go. So we're filming, we go, they come back, we film again. My producers are in the UK, they can't come in because of COVID, so they're in my ear. I wear my hearing aids attached to my phone, so they're always in my ear, and I'm like, I can hear him, but the other people can't, but they hear me talking. Like, I thought you said it was gonna be black people here, it's just white people here. And he was like, what? It's just white people? I'm like, it's just white people here. They looking at me. Y'all seen that last scene where I'm sitting there with this old house that looked like a slave-owned house too? And I'm like, I feel like a slave on the auction block right now, bro. Like, why you got all these white men here? And then they looking, and I was like, then one of them felt me up because he had to put the mic between my breasts. I was like, dude, like, but I'm joking with this guy, and he's like freaked out, like, oh my God, I can't, call cut. I'm like, he said call cut. And then they're like, what happened? He's calling somebody, and they're like, oh my God. And I'm like laughing and joking with these people, like, you think you can get me a beer, bro? What? And like, we're laughing and joking. He was like, oh my God. So we go through this whole thing, and I bond with these guys because these guys have to interview me for 7-8 hours. So we do an hour, it was like 7-8 interviews. They know all my garbage, right? They watch me cry. They watch everything. And one of the moments that was like the defining moment when I was sitting on the house looking at these men. He says, your face is too hard. Can you soften it for me? And I said to him, not knowing my mic was live and it was recording, I said to him, that's not how I'm built. I said, we are trained not to show any emotion in the field that I work in, and that when I go in, I don't show weakness. I was like, and you've just asked me to do that in front of 9 guys. I was like, that's not gonna happen. And they caught that audio while I'm looking at these guys, and they're all looking at me, and I'm like, so now what? And he goes, we're just gonna scrap it. So we stayed at the house a little bit longer. We went back to shoot at the house, and it was literally like 3 people. And then after that, we kind of reduced how many people were always around me, right? What's the time? Go. Okay. So that was that. So you can go and Google, it's pretty cool to say, you can go Google me and find this video, which is pretty good. So keys to thriving. I'm going to leave this up here and then you guys can see that. But adaptability, the big one I want you to take away is because you are here. Build a network. And I call it the 3x4 rule here, right? 3 people who look like you, but there's 1,200 people here, so you can increase that number. But you want people who look like you, people who are doing the research that you are doing, people who are doing research that you might be interested in, and people that are totally different from you. And the reason I say that is because each one of you in this room is going a different place. And you don't know where that person is going to end up. But you do know that you are connected because of SPS and physics. I maintain my mental health, and so I ask you to do the same. Meditation, silence, controlled alone time, 15 minutes in the sun. I journal. I love my tea. Love, love, love my tea. And I have mandatory self-care. It's scheduled on my calendar. My regrets and my mistakes. I'm going to leave those up there. But what you'll notice, what's not on that list is, I do not regret my past. I do not regret my family or my babies. And I do not regret the decision to do it the way I needed it to be done. That's them. That's my tribe. When you're invited to the table, make sure you make room for someone else. If they don't invite you to the table, build a table. Invite the people you want to your table. The others will be envious. I promise you. My desire is to be happy.
Come on, get out your seat. Come ride with Dr. H and walk. Space celebration is fun and great education, advancing our generation. Come join a space exploration. Let's have a space celebration.
Thank you. Make the music stop. I don't know how to make the music stop. I truly believe that if you can stop a moment and reframe your picture. Just turn the volume down, because I know it's doing something. If you can stop and reframe your picture, you can have what you want. But it's you who needs to take control of that. We have a book coming out in January, and if you scan right here, you can get a 30-minute session with me and the book for $15. There's a code at the bottom called Reframe. It's normally $75. Scan it. The code is good through November 30th, and that's only because of you guys, SPS. You're welcome. I'm going to leave it up there, and we have time for a few questions.
So, round of applause.
Good?
Thank you so much. Oh, wow.
Okay, so I know we got questions. So we have 2 people in the audience. They're going to help us identify questions. If you have questions, raise your hand. We'll get through a couple today, and then she's going to be available tomorrow evening to answer a whole bunch more questions. Sound good? Okay, question 1.
Hi, on your slide about surviving your bachelor's, you had a bullet point about making a happiness list. Could you just expand upon what that is and possibly what your happiness list
Yeah,
was?
so my happiness list was 10 items. A lot of times, I mean, think about when you're frustrated, right? You can't really think like, how do I get out of that? So I had written down on a piece of paper 10 things that made me happy. One of them was looking for 4-leaf clovers. A physicist ruined that for me, though. She called me one day and she said, you do know that 4-leaf clovers are a mutation and there's most likely radiation in the ground. I no longer look for 4-leaf clovers, but for the longest, I looked for 4-leaf clovers. And I would go out and people would see me and they would know I had had a rough day, and then I would look for them. And then my friends sometimes would look for them and send them to me. Ice cream was another big one. I also had my favorite song on that list. And so I would pick that list up when I was just in a bad space and go, you know what? And I'd work my way down from the top. And then usually, depending on how bad things was, by number 3, I was good, right? Number 10, was that plain of ice cream. It was always number 10, though. And sometimes I've gotten through that whole list. So that happiness list is written down, and now it's really easy because you can make a note in your phone. And so when you're in that bad space and you can't seem to think, because our thoughts are sometimes all jumbled up together, right? But that's what the happiness list is.
So you are an incredibly confident woman, but that can be very intimidating for certain people. How do you handle people being intimidated by your confidence and your assertiveness?
That's their business. When I care for people or I care about the situation, I have a tendency to want to not tone it down, because I made a promise to myself that I no longer would turn down my light for other people, right? I didn't want to be a shrinking violet. And so when I find those spaces, a lot of times it's really about them when they're insecure. And like I went to my lead and asked him, like, what's the deal? Like, I want us to be able to work together. Because I am kind of straightforward, I usually will just go and say, hey, how can we make this that situation? The other thing is, I've learned to accept that not all situations and all people are for me.
A lot of the speakers that we've had, including yourself, have talked about falling in love with science at a young age. What would you recommend to those of us who maybe didn't have a passion for science until later on and can't necessarily fall back on the love that you had as a kid when you face adversity?
So my falling in love with science wasn't what sustained me during adversity, though. It's what moved me into that field. Because when I asked my dad what I should do, he said, well, be an engineer, because I don't know any black scientists. That should have been enough to move me out of that. I fell back on my natural curiosity. So if you are in physics, you've got some kind of natural curiosity. And it's okay that you don't have a natural, I was in love with it at 8. It's okay for that not to be your story. But what I am going to say is, decide where you want to be at in the future, and then that's where your focus is, right? Don't chase the money, chase your happiness. But in there, just look for the fact that this is where you want to be, and what impact do you want to make in the world?
Hello.
Hi.
How do you get rid of the supersonic boom?
So the supersonic boom, that plane that we are developing, it's the way it actually moves through the air that's going to change that. But you saw how it has this very dramatic nose cone, and that's part of it. You're welcome.
Hi, Dr. Horton. I was the student you said you were nervous to, and you did phenomenal, so that was just a lie. I really hope Dr. Gates was here to see you, because that was an awesome speech. My question is, do you have any targeted advice towards young women of color in the audience?
Targeted advice was his? Yeah.
Towards young women of color.
To young women of color. You belong. That's it. There are going to be plenty of people who make you feel as if you are inferior to them, and you're not. And the reason that they decide that they want to stop your progression is because they see the light that you have and your greatness. And it's not just for women of color, it's for all the women sitting here. They see it. They know that you are about to take something by storm. And because they have a little bit of insecurity, they want to stop that. So for all of you who are sitting here, remember, that space is your space and you have the right to be there.
Thank you so much for your talk. My name is Kiara. I was wondering if you had any advice for somebody who has a plan and a wrench gets thrown into it when there's like a major life-changing event, and advice for being able to regroup after something like that.
Wrench thrown into a plan.
Can you say that one more time, please?
Do you mind pulling your mask down so the words come out a little bit clearer for me?
Sure. So for somebody who experiences a major life event that might affect their plans or delay their plans or something to that effect. So any advice for regrouping after?
So when I went back to college, and that was after being out for 10 years, right? That was the biggest regroup I had to do in my life. And at that point, I had to really sit down and put a lot of things on the table, because there was a lot of sacrifice in having to do that. And when you have to regroup, you have to actually be honest with yourself. So you have to be able to be self-critical and be able to accept your own critique on, this is how I need to get back over. One of the things I glossed over was I went back to school, and that first semester I almost flunked out. And I had to stop myself at the end of that semester when I got those grades, because I wasn't happy. Like, this is like not the plan that I had, because if I had lost the scholarship, I wasn't going to finish. And I had to go in and say, okay, what do I need to do to be able to be successful? And I only kept people in my life who wanted that for me. And so if I had learned that earlier on, I probably would have been a lot further along, but then I wouldn't be here with you guys probably, right? And so, one, clean out your closet as far as your network is concerned. If they're not doing the same things you're doing, or if they're not willing to stand in that regrouping with you, they shouldn't be part of your plan. Make sure you talk to me on Saturday. I've got a little bit more for you. I'm in trouble. She wrote on a piece of paper.
Sorry.
Oh my
You've
God.
stressed the importance of sponsors and people. Okay. You've stressed the importance of sponsors and people to support you. As a person with disabilities, people make assumptions about my capabilities. How do you combat people's assumptions without hiding who you are to build this network?
So people make assumptions about, because my disability is a hidden disability, I get a lot of assumptions that I'm just as normal as everybody else, right? People in your network who come in your network to support you. Brad came to me before and he said, this is the runner show. If you don't understand, look at me, and I'm gonna repeat that for you, right? When I went to my new team, I had to go to them and say, hey, I have a hearing disability, this is what, and they said, what do we need for you? So when people make assumptions, sometimes it's about educating them and just slightly correcting them, because they really do not know. If you look back in time, not even that far back, people with disabilities weren't always integrated into the workforce. And now that we have accepted that, hey, this is my disability, but I'm going to go ahead and take over the world, we came out and we're just as strong as we ever want to be, but we still need to do some education along with that. And so I don't have a problem with educating or advocating for what I need to be able to be successful. And so when you're thinking about what your success is going to be, if you got to do some talking in between in that, then that's what you do. It's just about speaking up. And then if you don't feel like your voice is big enough, send me a text message, and I'll call for you. Where's that clicker? Let me put my phone number up here. Well, I don't know where that's at. There. Write the number down, baby. Send me a text. If you ever get into the point where you need to be able to figure out how to formulate your words, or what do you need to say to be able to deal in a situation, text me. I usually text back, especially if it's during one of those boring meetings.
So within your work, you talked about balancing your desired location of residence and opportunities that you'd be getting. What advice would you have in that area?
Baby, I don't want to live where it's cold. I would be unhappy. I'm truly one of those people, and I'm just truly one of those people who believe that when you are happy, when you can be authentically who you are and living and working in a space that makes you happy, that pours into you. It's like a cup of water, right? If you are constantly pouring your cup out and emptying your cup because that's what you're doing for work, how are you refilling that cup? And so for me, I did a whole engineering graph to figure out, and weighted points and everything to figure out what was the most important thing to me outside of the career. And outside of that career, it actually was my location and how close I was to my family. Those things make me happy. Those are inherent things that just being in those. And since then, my father has moved in. We're a 4-generation house now because of COVID. And so now I'm living with my dad, my son, and my grandson right now, and I'm the only woman in the house. It's not good. But all of those things make me happy. I get up in the morning, I do yoga out in my yard looking at the bayou. I bought a kayak. I kayak, and every now and then there's some alligator eyes peeping at me. But I love where I am. And so those things to me were most important. And that's how I'm able to balance family, life, and career. Because even if I'm traveling for 2 weeks, when I go home, there's family. When I go home, there's friends. When I go home, there's my peace. My house is called Peace on the Bayou.
Hello, thank you so much for your speech today. I wanted to ask, I believe like you have heard it before or felt it before, but whenever you felt like you were the diversity hire in a group or in a team, how did you deal with that?
You know, originally I thought being the diversity hire was a bad thing, right? But then I realized they couldn't even really consider me if I didn't even have the credentials. And so I'm one of those people that's a little pushy though, because I'm like, well, I know what you're getting out of me, but what am I going to get out of you? And so when I was at Alabama, and I knew I was a diversity hire in the physics department because they had me on the front row in the school picture. And I was like, okay, y'all putting me up here to be able to tell people that you are diversified, what do I get out of it? Well, I got to establish my outreach program, and they funded it with swag and everything. We were the only outreach program with T-shirts, Frisbees, all kinds of stuff we were giving these kids, right? And so if you really feel like you're the diversity hire, call them on it, and then ask for what you want as well.
Hello? Your speech was amazing. Well, clearly your motivation and your determination is really inspiring. So I wanted to ask you, how do you foster that level of determination to your children?
To my children?
Yes.
Child, I'm sure they don't even like me like that. I fostered them being their own individuals because that's what I wanted for them. I wanted them to define their happiness, and then whatever that is, I wanted to be able to watch them be in it. And that's what they are. Now, they call me for advice all the time, but that fostering their happiness is what I gave them. They think I'm motivational most times, I guess. Where else?
Hello. I'm sure you have, inspired us a lot. And I come from a school that is like very diverse, especially in Latino students. So I was wondering how you transfer that inspiration and in which ways we can do it so other people can get inspired and motivated, just like how you did it with us.
You want to know how you inspire others? Yes. How you can take that information and you can inspire others?
In any way in which we can inspire like students like from our backgrounds, like Latinos, like Black students.
Okay, so the Latinos in the room, are y'all inspired right now? Okay. The only thing that you got to do is you got to believe what you're talking, right? And if you're not happy about it, ain't nobody else going to believe you either. When you've heard that thing where people say, you know, that person's smile touched their eyes, that's because there's a twinkle in their eye. And so when you're talking about whatever you're talking about, trying to get somebody else engaged or excited about it, if you're not excited about it, you can't pass that energy to them either. All right?
As a non-traditional student, did you ever feel as though you were at an unfair disadvantage to your more traditional peers? And if so, how did you push through that?
Ooh, yeah, because they was out there partying. I was a little upset, too, because I had them kids at home who was hungry and stuff and needed a bath and homework, and it was just terrible. No, I didn't. I mean, it was very different to be in class with 20-year-olds, and literally, it changed my view, though, to teach, because I couldn't teach right away, because I kept thinking about all the hard work that I had put in, and then these kids were calling me when I started teaching, talking about, you know, the football game was, I don't care if you got a hangover from Saturday. It's Monday. You still should have did your homework. Did I think it was an unfair? No, because that was my choice. It was my choice to be a non-traditional student. I had to realize that my sacrifices that I was making was because it was what I wanted it to be. I still wouldn't do my journey any differently. I still would do it the way that I did it. And I got some cool, amazing younger friends now that I got when I went back to school. And I wouldn't have had them if I had done it another way.
Hello, my name is Joey. So as a mom, what advice would you give to other moms or parents whose kids are leaving the nest and starting their own life?
That are leaving the nest, they do come back. They come back sometimes. But as a mom, one of the hardest things for me has been allowing them to have their life. I was really pushing my kids like to be, you know, overachievers like their mama was. And they called a family meeting. And after 10 minutes of them having the family meeting, I was invited to the family meeting. And in the family meeting, the spokesperson said, we need to tell you something. And I'm looking like, what? Because y'all been in this room 10 minutes already, what? I'm thinking the worst. Like one of the boys done got somebody pregnant, you know, some crazy stuff, right? That's what I was thinking anyway. And they said, we no longer want to walk in your shadow. They said, you've created very big footprints. And we don't want to be there. And I had to take that moment as a parent and say, whoa, I need to allow them to not walk behind me, but to walk with me. And in walking with me, they have to define who they are. So for all the parents in the audience, it's a hard thing. I'm mad now that my kindergarten ain't reading yet. I kept calling home. My son said, Mama, don't call me about this ABC mouse no more. I said, but I checked it. He ain't did the 30 minutes. The catch is, each one of the parents in this room, and for those who will be parents, you will cast a shadow. And our children, your children, don't want to be in it. They want to be who they are. So that was the hardest thing for me, and that's the one thing I want other parents to know, other moms.
Hi, my name is Christian. I just had a question. When you transitioned from going to being in school to going to your professional career, if any, what type of challenges did you have and how did you deal with that?
Did you not pay attention? I just told you I was homeless, jobless. It was more of, I was ready for a career leaving school because in school, and because I was non-traditional and kind of living my life very differently, school had always been structured as a job for me. And so because it was already structured as a job, I transitioned pretty well into actually getting up, going, and you know, all of that time and doing that thing. So the transition was pretty good. Recently, I just had a conversation with a gentleman, and he said to me, you have to treat everything else that you're doing like a business. You are a business. So when you're going into your career and everything else that you're doing, you've got to determine as a business how much time and effort you want to give to those things and how much those things are going to enrich you as a business. So if you take that model, now, if I had known that then, you know, it probably would have been pretty good. But for me, the transition was pretty easy after I got past the homelessness and the joblessness.
Okay, we have time for one last quick one.
Quick, two more.
Hello, my name is Andrew, and just wanted to say thank you so much for your speech. And my question is, as a freshman and a first-generation student, do you have any advice for how to network as well as look for opportunities in what I may or may not be interested in?
Your name again?
Andrew.
Andrew. Who else in this room is a first-gen, first semester? Okay. Who in the room is a first-gen, past first semester? Okay. Andrew, stand up again. Okay, look at Andrew. I want you guys all to give Andrew your contact information. Okay? All right, you got it, Andrew? So I just gave you about 10. What's your field you're interested in?
Plasma physics or AI engineering with applied physics.
Okay. Professors, are any of you into that? I got one guy here. Anybody else? Any professors here? A guy over there? Okay, so there's a professor back there. So you got it, Andrew? I just gave you 3 more. What was your last one?
That guy's Blaine right there. Blaine.
Okay, what sport do you like, Andrew?
I'm sorry, what?
Sport.
I'll go with tennis.
Anybody in here play tennis? All right, for all of those who play tennis, make sure you give Andrew your number. All right, now, give me 3 black students. Raise your hand who could be friends with Andrew. Get Andrew your number. There you go, Andrew.
Let's give her a real big round of applause. Phenomenal. We got a photo of this. And on all of your behalf, the Associate Zone Counselors have prepared a gift.
I get a cow. I get a cow.
On behalf of SPS and Sigma Phi Sigma, we would like to give you a gift for donating us your time and expertise and fantastic dance moves.
Thank you.
Thank you for all you do.
I get a cow.
Okay. So a couple quick announcements, and then, so some of you probably, in fact, I know some of you still have questions. Dr. Horton has been very gracious with her time, and she has agreed to be at the Centennial Festival tomorrow night. So if you want to get a selfie, you want to get some advice, you want to get a signed picture, there's going to be opportunities for that on Saturday evening at the Centennial Festival. A couple other really quick ones. So we're going to break from this room, and we're going to be going to workshops, right? I didn't see any head nods, and that makes me nervous, right? You're going to workshops, right? So an insane amount of effort has been put forward to make sure we have the best workshops we've ever had at the Congress. So y'all are going to get up and go to your workshop rooms, okay? And at the end of the workshops, I need a favor. So there's a tight turnaround, 15 minutes. Can you help clean up? Like when the workshop's done, ask if there's anything you need to help clean up before you go to the next one. Can you do that for me? Okay, thank you. Okay, additionally, we have made Dr. Renee Horton cards, decks of cards, which have a whole bunch of awesome things written on them. There's going to be instructions for them. Because of the hurricane and stuff, they got delayed. So we're going to be launching later on this fall a way for you to be able to get cards with Renee Horton and inspirational ways that you can empower yourself and empower others around you. Okay? So they're going to be super dope, and they're plastic, or purple. Last thing, I did want to do a quick reminder. Tonight at George Washington University, starting at 8 o'clock, where's GW? Got a couple. There is high energy hot chocolate and trivia tonight there. It's going to be really awesome. It starts at 8 o'clock. To go there, you get on the metro, you go 2 stops down to Farragut North, I think, and it's maybe a 5-10 minute walk from there. So it's really not far. There's hot chocolate. I think I bought 40 or 50 tabletop games for y'all to play, so it's going to be a lot of fun. And I was promised that there is a limited edition special SPS sticker that if you do the scavenger hunt there, the only place you can ever get it is there. So you got to go do the trivia event there, and Gary White is really excited to do that. Okay? Oh, and then one quick announcement. If any zones or AZCs would like to meet with their zone, specifically Zone 11 requested a meetup that'll be in this room at 6 o'clock at the end of both of the workshops. So come to this room at 6 o'clock for a quick Zone 11 meetup. Okay? So go to your workshops, go have fun, and I will see you all later.